As many of you know, we broke one of the biggest stories I think I've ever broke in my career. It was one of the first shows of the year of the World Health Organization. And we had cameras from inside the Global Summit on Vaccine Safety from just last December. And we played videos of these scientists saying things that no one believed that they would ever admit to. But in particular, there's a video that we played from Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. She's the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. Now, many of you asked us to put those statements she made out in a smaller video, and we did. And we very consciously did it in a specific way. The World Health Organization had made a video where she went out to the world saying vaccines are safe and effective, you should trust this treatment. And then we showed the video right after it where she's in the summit saying that, well, you know, our safety surveillance actually isn't that robust. And I believe you see two diametrically opposing statements from the same human being. In my world, I would call that lying. Well, that's come under fire because now there's a giant stamp over this video that says false information. So let me play the video as you can see it on YouTube just to begin this conversation, and know that we had to remove the banner and go through all the bells and whistles now to get to what they're calling false information. Here's what's posted online. Take a look at it yourself.
Vaccines are very safe. If someone gets sick after vaccination, it is usually either a coincidence, an error in administering the vaccine, or very rarely a problem with the vaccine itself. That's why we have vaccine safety systems. Robust vaccine safety systems allow health workers and experts to react immediately to any problems that may arise. They can examine the problem rigorously and scientifically, look at the data, and then promptly address the problem. WHO works closely with countries to make sure that vaccines can do what they do best, prevent disease without risks. New vaccines against malaria, meningitis, and encephalitis in Asia and Africa are now being thoroughly monitored with support from WHO. Vaccines are one of the safest tools we have to prevent disease and ensure a healthy future for all children. I think we cannot overemphasize the fact that we really don't have very good safety monitoring systems in many countries, and this adds to the miscommunication and the misapprehensions because we're not able to give clear-cut answers when people ask questions about the deaths that have occurred due to a particular vaccine, and this always gets blown up in the media. One should be able to give a very factual account of what has happened and what the cause of deaths are. But in most cases, there's some obfuscation at that level, and therefore there's less and less trust then in the system. Putting in place the mechanisms, whether they're cohort studies or whether they're sentinel surveillance sites, to be able to monitor what's going on and report back, and then for corrective action to be taken, because unexpected things could arise after introduction, and one always has to be prepared. As we've seen, in the history of many drugs, you've heard about, learned about adverse events only after the drug's been licensed and introduced into the population. So I think that risk is always there, and the population needs to understand that and feel confident that mechanisms are being put in place to study some of those things.
So that's how the video plays. And by the way, I purposefully did not put myself making any of the interjections that happened on the show discussing this, because I wanted to make sure it was really clean, that you just got to see the two videos back to back. Mostly the first one's not edited, and some light editing on the second one to get to the points. Now you can ask yourself, I'm going to ask you right now, is she lying? Is she lying? Because in the first video, she says we have a robust surveillance system. Because remember, none of these vaccines have been tested against an inert placebo. So all we have is any problems that are going to appear in the vaccine, they're not going to show up in trials because we're just simply not doing good safety trials. So we're going to have to look at our surveillance system. And so she's saying we have a robust surveillance system. Anytime a problem arises, don't worry about it. We figure it out and we make sure this vaccine program is safe for you. It's one of the safest health initiatives we have. And then you find her behind, it says a few days, it was like 3 days later, now she's at the World Health Organization at the summit saying, we have to admit, we really don't have good safety surveillance systems in many countries. Is that not lying? Robust safety system? We don't have a surveillance system at all in many countries that's working. And then she goes on to say, we need to be able to tell somebody that thinks that their child died or someone died after a vaccine, and we can't because we don't know. I mean, crazy, diametrically opposed statements. To me, I don't understand how this video has been pulled down. I don't understand how it's been censored. But we know who did it and who's involved because it was this lead story. Actually, we saw this story come out before we even had the video censored. This is fact-checked. It's lead stories. I don't even know what this thing is. It's some sort of fact-checking group. It says this is by Wayne Dash. Is that correct? Drash. And the article says fact-check. WHO chief scientist, not all caps, caught lying to the public. We actually saw this article, and I called Patrick and said, did you read this thing? I actually said to Patrick, I think this guy's on our side. I actually think he's just faking it. He put a really ugly title at the head of it, but if you read the article, he proves we're right. He goes on and says, was the WHO chief scientist caught lying to the public about the robustness of the organization's safety systems? No, that's a misleading claim being shared via anti-vaccine groups. The groups, however, do raise, listen to this, do raise pertinent questions about recent comments by Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. Wait a minute, how can you say both things? That it's misleading, but we are raising pertinent? How can it be pertinent and misleading at the same time? That's a quandary. He goes on to say, recent comments by Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, the chief scientist of the World Health Organization, and the world body may need to give a better explanation about her remarks, but to say she is lying is a stretch. The video is nicely done. It's not that nicely done, buddy. We took the two videos and stuck them back to back. Of all the things we've ever done, there's no production value to this whatsoever. The video is nicely done. It juxtaposes a slickly produced WHO public relations video with comments from Swaminathan with those she made during a roundtable WHO discussion in December last year. Again, lead stories issues with the Post is with the headline accusing the chief scientist of lying. To make such a statement, one would have to know her intent. So it all becomes an issue of intent. Because I don't know that her intent was to lie, the headline should not say scientist caught lying. I find this really, really fascinating. I mean, first of all, you know, how many times do we watch journalists? I think of all the journalists I watch on MSNBC and CNN constantly saying that Donald Trump is lying. He's lying all the time. Do they know his intent? I mean, he could just be crazy. He could just believe what he's saying. Maybe he just has a robust ego. I mean, I don't know. Is intent the only thing we can question when someone says two totally different things within 3 to 5 days of each other? I don't know, but this is the reason that they've now put a false information flag across our video. Now remember, I don't appear in that video. I give the audience the ability to see both videos if they're allowed to see it and decide whether they think these are two diametrically opposing statements. Even this article writer, you know, Wayne Drash, says this is a pertinent conversation. Let's look at what he goes on to say. Lead story asked the health organization for further clarification, including how many countries don't have very good safety monitoring systems. Great question there, Wayne. How is WHO trying to solve this problem? Really good question. A lot of what they address. If you want to watch our show, The High Wire, that covered all the things that they said, you may want to do that, but that would probably take too much of your time and maybe too many brain cells. Moving on, if many countries don't have good safety monitoring systems, how can WHO guarantee the safety of vaccinations for those in those countries? And look what he says. The WHO has not responded. But look at these questions. These are all the exact questions we should be asking. And remember, one of the things I've seen bloggers, I've seen people write about this saying it's misleading information. And what they've said is, She is clearly saying it's not all countries don't have a safety monitoring system, just many or some. So you can't say that it's a lie. Well, not true. Because this World Health Organization video that's slickly produced as far as this writer is concerned, plays on the internet to everyone in the world. Because the video was made for the whole world. So she's obviously lying to whoever those countries are that don't have surveillance systems. Newsflash, our surveillance system in America sucks too, but that's a totally different story. Lastly, here's my issue. In the end, he says he gets no confirmation from the WHO. He is asking all the same questions that we've been asking about this because it's very disturbing. What do you mean we don't have good monitoring systems? And he comes down to only one argument against me, that I don't know that her intent was to lie. And that is the single remaining fact for them putting false information across our video. And I have this to say. I'm a reputable journalist. I'm a producer, has won an Emmy Award on the daytime medical talk show The Doctors. I have enlisted 2 other CBS producers along with very talented scientific minds and others that work on our show, and we are really dedicated to the integrity of what we're saying. And we make sure that we double check everything we're saying, especially if we're saying someone's lying. We give you the information to decide yourself. And if they're saying this is false information, then those are defamatory statements against my career. I believe that. If you have if you're saying that I can and the high wire is putting out false information, you damn well better be right about that, or I'm going to take this all the way to the court. And this is something we're going to start looking at. We're going to look at, is it legal for what's happened here? Here's my last point. Let's go ahead and assume this writer is correct, that it comes down to intent is the reason I'm not allowed to say scientists caught lying. Well, it's really interesting that this writer has their own headline, and it says WHO chief scientist not caught lying to the public. Did you know the intent there, Wayne? To make the statement that they're not lying? No, clearly you don't, because you said you reached out to the WHO and they did not respond. So therefore, we are both caught in the only problem you have with my video is the headline making a statement of which I don't know the intent. You have a headline that makes a statement and you don't know the intent. But I'll say this about the difference between the two of us. I have 2 videos that prove my point. I have 2 videos where people can make up their own minds over whether they think they're lying. You only have a desperate assumption to be correct with no proof whatsoever. So even though neither of us may know the intent, your headline is even more wrong. And your headline is why Facebook finds this video should be censored. Facebook, I'm going to come after you if this is how you're going to do these things. We're going to figure out a way, because freedom of speech is a right. It's certainly a right on platforms that everyone's using. And if you're going to choose sides, you better explain how you think that's right. This is a serious problem and getting more and more serious by the day.